All right, Max, I'm going to try to answer your question as best as I can. So on the left in Firefox, I've got the site that is loading, the original site, which is on the aplus.net site. And then you see here it's in the root directory of WordPress 2015. And then over here on the right is the actual .com. And it looks like what maybe you tried to do was you got this working over on this website, and you tried to use some kind of iframe tool to load the site on the left into the domain web page on the right. And I think that is the root nature of your problem. So let's take a look. What I want you to do is in Firefox, I want you to go to both of these sites side by side if you want. And I'm just going to right click anywhere and inspect the element in both of them so I can get the developer tools to pop up. And excuse me. All right, so and then once you do that, I want you to find the tab that says console and click on that. Go to the console for each one of these, and then I want you on the left side, double check where it says JS and there's a drop down. Make sure that errors and warnings are turned on. You could do that for all of the stuff if you want, and then go ahead and refresh the page, and you'll see everything showing up. Okay, and then over here, I'm going to go ahead and refresh the page as well. And what I want you to pay attention to are a few things. One is that if you did have everything turned on for all of your error reporting, one of the things you'll notice is that you've got, what happened here? Oh, I accidentally turned off JS. Anyway, you'll notice that you've got a bunch of problems in red where, like, for instance, these are all XHR or XML HTTP requests. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually XML, but it's a request that is using some sort of JavaScript, whether it's either synchronous or asynchronous. Most of the time it's asynchronous, but sometimes you can also do synchronous requests as well. Anyway, and I think that this is part of the problem, possibly, but and I'll get to why. The other thing too that you can come over here and look at on the right side are some things that specifically don't show up. So if you scroll all the way to the top on both of these, all right, and then you start to scroll down, first thing that I notice is that I don't see an error message at the top that says my character encoding is not declared. And so that's not, I don't think, I don't believe that that's what's really causing the problem, but it is a problem in general. This, I think, is a bigger problem where it says NS error failure, and it's got a link over here. It says to the WordPress 2015 site, and that is a big red flag for me. And that's originally how I found it, is by going here. Is that I realized that if you look at the source code, you're actually taking this domain and you use some kind of iframe device to load this website, right? That's over here on a different site. And I think that as a result, what's happening is with some of these XHR requests, I think that you're having problems with them being loaded inside of an iframe. That's my hypothesis. So for instance, if I go over here to this little button and I actually go to the inspector, I'm going to open this up a little bit here so that we can see it a little bit better. And I don't really care about the styles so much. And if I look at this, this is actually the page for this whole site, and it is you see in an iframe, and the ID is called my iframe, and I don't know if that is specifically the like some sort of API that you're using. I did go and look that up, and I found this, my iframe. I don't know if it's the same thing. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe you just called it my iframe. I have no idea. But if you were to look at this, one of the things that this website does sort of warn you about, if this is what you used, that sometimes for technical reasons or because of time, it's not possible to add something to your website. And I'm going to guess that maybe some of the stuff might be timing out in Firefox. You know, so like if you wanted to link to another site by giving it direct access from your site. And like, I think that's the problem, is I think that you've got this cross-scripting issue, and Firefox might not be permitting it because certain kinds of cross-scripting are seen as potentially malicious. So I think that it might be that. And anyway, you could look at this. If this isn't the actual API thing that you're using, I wanted to just show you a couple things that you could look up. There's this, if you just look up NS error failure, if you were just look that up, one of the top hits is this page where it starts to talk about some stuff, and then if you scroll down, it gets to the part about yours. I don't know if it's specifically NS IX HTML HTTP request, but it is something about the XHR, okay, which is the XML HTTP request. And you can see here that a lot of times it's because of stale references. Often the problem is between documents, including like if you're using iframes, when the browser gets confused, like right, maybe it thinks it doesn't exist anymore, or there's an old reference using some sort of embedded plugin or whatever. Anyway, I think that might be your problem. If you want to read a little bit about this issue, you can go to MDN's website, Mozilla Developer Network site, and there's some like maybe 3 different articles that I would encourage you to look at. One is the actual page about XML HTTP request, and it explains some different things about it. Anyway, and one of the things it does tell you is that you know, it's basically something that you would typically use with Ajax, so asynchronous JavaScript. So basically that you could do something without having to do the full page refresh and not disrupt what the user's doing. But there are ways of also doing synchronous, and synchronous sometimes can make the page freeze or timeout. So anyway, you might want to look at this, and then you can look at this page about synchronous and asynchronous requests, and it tells you right here that XML HTTP request, it does support both synchronous and synchronous, I can't talk, synchronous and asynchronous communications. Usually async is better, but if some of those requests in that function are actually synchronous, that potentially could be your issue. I mean, it could be an issue as part of the asynchronous too. Maybe the function's just not really written well, because maybe it was never intended to be stuck inside of an iframe. Anyway, you could read this, and then you can also look at MDN, the MDN page about iframe tag, and you might want to look at some other information on here, like about what the referrer policy is. That might have some bearing on how things are being dealt with, as well as, you know, the sandbox stuff. So I want to show you also, there's this web page at Quora, and this guy sort of describes the HTTP request as well, but specifically, you know, it's not just about XML. You can also do like JSON, HTML, plain text, stuff like that, right? But the thing that's really useful about this page specifically, because I kind of already told you that, is that there's a good link right here using XML HTTP request on mozilla.org. So if we go here, you should actually read some of these pages. I think that this is a good way to help you troubleshoot stuff. One of the things that I think I found somewhere in here was the XML HTTP request being stopped. And actually, I'll blow that up. Ugh, where'd it go? Here it is. So yeah, so if you see that it's you're getting some sort of null return, it's saying that the request was not allowed to be performed. And you might be able to see that, you know, maybe some of the things that could be happening is that it says the expected request is created when the window to be closed is still there, and finally sending the request, in other words, open when this window has lost its focus and another window gains focus. You know, I don't know if that's specifically what's happening. Could be, not sure, but it's obviously not working. And if you were to jump back and actually take a peek, one of the things that if you scroll down further in the console that you're also going to see that is very specific to what's happening is that if where it says type error is O is null and you go down, you'll see that it's for your isotope function. And isotope is the framework that loads all of those little boxes on your screen. And you see down here it says the type of error that the isotope container is not a function. So it can't find the function. Like it's not behaving properly. So you could actually go and take a peek at that. And anyway, that's all a bunch of fussy troubleshooting. But the point that I guess I'm getting at is that I think it's all a result of you putting an entire WordPress website inside of an iframe. I think that's your problem. And the way that I would resolve it is to actually go back and migrate your site properly. And if that means doing a database dump and then searching through it as a SQL text file and doing what I showed you how to do last year when you were doing a job, how to do the search and replace and how to change all the domain information and stuff like that in that file. I think that that's what you need to do. So refer back to your notes from when we did that. And if that's not actually what we really addressed last year, because I know we addressed a lot of stuff with that database stuff, and I don't remember exactly what it was. I don't know if it was migration or if we were able to get around that because they were just using a single database for too many sites or something like that. I think that's what it was. Anyway, but if you don't remember how to do it, I can show you. I'll send you a link also. But basically, you can refer to my what is it, the playlist that I made for the class that you were in last time using the MATLAMP server. Um, it's it's not going to be exactly specific to what your needs are in terms of like the domain names, but I think you'll get the gist of it and you'll be able to totally get it to work just fine if you go through this. So I'll send you a link in an email to this, but it'll show you how you're going to be able to transfer it. And the concern that you would have is going to be that while you're working on this to make sure that it actually is functional, that your current website is not going to be functional, so at least in that domain name. So what I would do if this were my project is I would actually make a page that does a redirection, like a header redirection. When you go to the regular.com domain, it does a redirection back to that other site that's actually working, and then you can upload all the WordPress files to the server just except for the index.php file. And with the index.php file, obviously you don't want to overwrite the one that's redirecting to the functional website. But at least that way you can put the files there. And the other thing is that then you'd have to deal with doing the database properly. And I talk about the rest of all that stuff in here. So yeah, I think that's what you probably need to do. And I think that you'd mentioned to me that it seems to work if you switch the theme to 2015. And I think that maybe that's working because Isotope is not part of 2015. And I think it's that asynchronous HTTP XML HTTP request problem inside of an iframe that's causing problems. Because if you're switching themes and it seems to be working okay, I think the problem is really about the Ajax stuff not working in an iframe. Yeah, okay, hopefully that's helpful.